Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Welcome, everybody. Today, Dr. Helen McKibben is joining us on the show to talk about her book, Drop, Making Great Decisions. Oh my gosh, life decisions. And if you're like me, sometimes you want to make a decision, you make the decision, say, yes, this is it. And then a few hours later, like, well, maybe not. Maybe this side is the one I need to choose. But, Dr. McKibben is a seasoned clinical therapist. She has over 35 years of experience, and she holds a doctorate in psychology, counseling licenses in multiple states, and national certification. So she knows her stuff. And what I really love about this is she has a technique. It's a self-help technique called dropping to the blank screen. And I'm excited to hear more about that today and talk about neuroscience. We always hear that term floating around, but do we really get it? So very excited to have Dr. McKibben on the show. And you can go to her website, helenmckibben.com, and that is linked in the show notes, the show description. So easy just to click through. So welcome, Doctor. How are you?
I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you, Lisa.
I'm excited too, because, neuroscience, we all kind of think, oh, yes, our brain just has to be rewired. And then we kind of leave it at that. So when we talk about neuroscience, can you give us and kind of an idea of what neuroscience is? Just kind of put it to my level of understanding so that we can kind of get it, because I think we kind of get it, but not really understand how it's connected with our emotions. And I think that's what's really great about what your work is, how we always kind of put our brain as the mechanical bull of our body and the emotions as heart. And then we kind of forget that they're connected.
Very connected. And I'm so glad you mentioned these things, because in my book, the last chapter it's scientific, and it describes what the brain goes through with a neuroscience base for managing emotions, which is my whole life's work. When I went to school, there was a lot of, mind-body relaxation techniques, meditation, TM, but I chose the route of studying neuroscience and how the brain works emotionally. And now I'm trying to give that gift and a simple method that goes with that gift to your readers so they can do two things. They can understand why they're doing what they're doing, and second, an opportunity to change what they're doing if it is not working for them in their life.
I love that, because I also think there's a lot going on in the world, and humans have a lot on their shoulders, especially our youth. There's generational stuff that gets passed down, and maybe you don't realize it until you're older. But also there's wars going on in the world. There's a lot going on. There's climate change. There's economic instability, which makes everybody on edge. There's so much shift going on, and change always freaks people out. And what I've also started to realize is that we don't actually have as much help out there as we may think or be able to afford. And so I think what you've got with your book, is really Drop, Making Great Decisions, is really invaluable of today, because people are having to make some really big life decisions. Am I changing my career? Am I going to start my own business? Am I going to work remotely? Should I have children in the midst of climate change? I'm starting to give myself some anxiety here, just talking about all that stuff. But really, we need a tool that we can work with. And I think it's great that you also have a podcast on your site. I was listening to some of the episode and the excerpt today, and I'm like, this is fantastic, because you really help people kind of work through this.
Well, you've said some marvelous things, and I'm going to go backwards to the first thing you were talking about, which is how in the world does something happen outside of ourselves, with a difficult person or the news or change in our lives, and how in the world are we responding the way that we do? One of the first things that's very important is that people stop blaming themselves for what they do and understand that often how we manage stress or difficult people or triggered feelings is learned in the first 5 years of brain development by observing our wonderful parents or caregivers. And we never criticize them because guess what? Your parents or your caregivers learn to manage feelings or parent you from their parents. But for us, it's very important. You mentioned we catch that when we're older. Well, let's catch it when you were younger too,
Hmm.
to understand that the book gives you a way to identify as soon as you've been triggered to feel. It gives you homework to identify what you learned growing up as a style of managing or running from feelings. And the other thing, it gives you a technique because when you're triggered to feel, Lisa, every
Hmm.
time you felt that way before in the past jumps on board and makes a feeling enormous to sort through before we can make good decisions. So, what we're talking about is yes, we have our PTSD response to war, or we have a response to trauma, or we have a response to losing a relationship. And all of those are also very, very much affected by what's happened in our past. So, this
Mm.
shift and drop to the blank screen that I teach people has you do two things very quickly: identify that you've been triggered, and a method to shift and drop through all those former memories, which activates the brain to configure how you feel in the moment and every time you felt that way before. And then it spits out simple words or ideas. It's designed to of what you could do differently so you don't feel those ways again or
Mm.
do those things again. So very helpful method for people to rewire their brain and redo their decisions by using the brain, as you mentioned, Lisa,
Mm.
and the way it is designed to work.
I talked about decision making at the beginning, saying, there's these
Yes.
these big decisions, right? But then and the word trigger, I mean, we used to, it's not from the TV show. It's not Western, but
Right.
triggers become, something everybody knows about today, right? And it back in when I was a kid, I mean, if you were going to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, man, your friends were like snickering at you. Like you are a messed up individual if you had to. It was like, you don't talk about any of this. That in my era of like in high school and before. So I think now we're getting better at this communication of, self-empowerment, personal development and growth.
Exactly.
Um, so I love that part of it is that, okay, trigger, we understand, but if we don't understand trigger, how do we, then sometimes we make a decision and we react to the trigger. So those
Yes.
decisions, we're not even really, your body's conscious of it because it's doing it, but you could be making a decision by your action without
Right.
thinking because you're
And
triggered, right?
and the gift of the method is I give people a way to immediately identify they're triggered before they overreact or before they say or do something they regret. Shift and go through and activate the brain in the way it puts together past and present memory in nanoseconds, by the way, Lisa. And it
Mm.
spits out words or ideas that you try out. You make decisions based on listening to yourself, not remembering what a therapist said, not remembering what a book said or a podcast says. In the moment, using the brain in the way it uses how we feel and past memory recall to re-decide decisions. Very,
Does
very important.
does this work for people that are going through addiction, because I know
Oh,
that there's a
yes.
lot of addiction. We have an addiction crisis, right, too, in this country.
Very
Whether it's the opioids, alcohol. I mean, we're moving to mocktails in life, which is good, but addiction can come in all kinds of ways. Whether it's chocolate cake, don't look at me on that one. but but that trigger, like that's another. It's a weird thing because there's trigger from emotional memory, right? But then isn't there almost like addiction is a different kind of trigger because of the, I don't know, you have triggers around you that, I remember years and years and years ago, and I don't know how many years, but it's got to be over 20 something years.
Yeah.
I stopped smoking and I did it by locking myself away from all my friends and even changing my diet, because if I had like coffee, I would immediately want to, I had to like change. I drank a lot of tea, peppermint tea, to just kind of clean my body and stay away from
Good for
anybody who
you.
was a trigger. It was like, you're not going to do this. And I wasn't the most polite person at that point. So it's probably good that I stayed away from friends and colleagues. I just went, you know what, if you're going to do this, get it done and don't revisit it,
Right.
because, and then it was miserable. But then, like, I'm very healthy now because of that.
You did
There
the right
was,
thing. I'm very glad you have good instincts listening to yourself, because what you did is you locked yourself away from being triggered and all the memories of the past jumping on board that your brain has to sort through to change the configuration on your brain not to smoke. I mean, there's so many things I'd like to say right now, but let
go
me give
ahead.
you an example. Let's go to first defining very clearly that I see addictions not just as an ingestion of a substance, but an addiction is often learned if we're around people who are up in their head strategizing around a drink or a drug or food or people. And we kind of inherit our parents' style of going up and running from feelings by overthinking. So I see addiction as an individual who's also up in their head, strategizing how much to eat, how much not to eat, how much to drink, how much not to drink. Okay. So that is what they can identify by using my method, that they're up in their head running from feelings by over strategizing around a substance. And then let me give you a delightful example of how the brain works. Let's say you have a craving
Mm-hmm.
and you're in your car and you haven't stopped, and your brain is just flooding you with images of thirst and wanting to get something to drink. Why? Because the brain is so beautifully designed, it will trigger you if liquid levels in the brain get below normal, it will have you
Oh.
crave liquids. So let's put it all together, how the brain works with that craving. You get the craving. If
Mm-hmm.
you talk to the blank screen, because that's a trigger, your brain will also include that when you were a child, you're having a craving for liquids and you're having a craving for milk. If you
Okay.
drop, your brain will go, oh, but you loved chocolate milk when you were a kid. So you get to the Wawa or the 7-Eleven convenience store, you open the thing, you're standing there and you're looking at the chocolate milk. And then you're also dropping, remembering that in the here and now, you're trying to lose a bit of weight. So you pick the low fat variety, but meet the need that the brain is pushing you to meet for liquid, calcium, using what we ate growing up. You never get rid of that. And your personal here and now goal.
Hmm. Wow.
If I were up in my head strategizing about what I should not eat or not drink, or oh, I'm on a diet, instead of dropping and incorporating what the brain's telling me, what my past is telling me, and what my current reality is telling me, then I don't ingest the chocolate milk and I get in trouble.
Okay. So drop is like basically saying, drop that thought, drop that trigger, like drop the ball. It's okay. But because
No,
you,
it's a little
it's
different. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, no, no.
it's
I wanted to
yeah,
understand more.
it's not like let it go. I'm triggered. When you're triggered, the first cue that we're triggered by person, situation, thoughts is that we light up physically. In the
Mm,
book, it teaches you how to notice uniquely where you light up when you're triggered to feel. The first thing that stops the overreaction is you shift and notice where you're lighting up physically. Second, you drop your entire body weight till you're back to the blank screen that's defined in the book, which isn't talking yourself into some breathing relaxation. It's getting to a blank screen. And
mhm.
in the process of shifting and noticing where you light up, you stop overreacting. In the dropping to the blank screen, your brain is configuring like mad how you feel in the moment and every time you felt that way before. And if you sit in the blank screen, that's where you get your ideas of what to say or do so you can quench your
Mm.
thirst or make a better decision or walk away from the interaction, not beating yourself up for what you said or did reactively. It gives a non-reactive response to yourself or your decisions and in interacting with other people. And
Huh.
add a bonus, has you stop second guessing yourself or listening to any self criticism. It bypasses.
Oh,
So the only thing we're bypassing is not trying to kind of get rid of how we feel. We use the way we feel to make decisions. What we're bypassing is any second guessing that you might have developed in your early years of development.
wow. That's pretty amazing though, because I think that second guessing is where you start getting, I don't know if weak is the right word, but I feel like that's when you start to lose confidence in what you believe to know, what you know deep down is the right thing. You know what I mean? We know deep down.
Oh,
Um,
the deep down is everything. You're just so astute with what you're saying. Have you ever walked away from a situation and said, I knew this was going to happen. How come I didn't listen to myself?
oh yes.
I'm giving everyone
Yes.
in your
Who
listening
hasn't?
audience a method to get to those words with this simple notice I'm lit up, shift and notice where, drop to the blank screen, listen to my knowing that we all have the ability to do. And then whether you stay with it and make a decision is based on, are you using the way you feel to make decisions? If you don't stay with that instinct and do what someone else tells you to do or listen to the second guessing in your head,
Mm,
you won't make decisions that work for you.
mm, right. Because I think we are all born with this in like incredible
Oh,
knowledge,
we are. We are. And
you
it's,
know?
that's why I studied the neuroscience because I want to give people a way to tap into listening to that knowing or that instinct. And
Mm,
it's not just, I can think about, I should, listen to my instincts. You have to get to that knowing by incorporating how you feel in the moment and the history of every time you felt that way before to reach that knowing and make good decisions for yourself. That's
mm.
what the book is all about.
That's cool though. And, I think when we look at meditation, you were talking about like transcendental meditation, which I know really does good stuff.
It
Um,
does.
we had I'm going to forget his last name, but we had the doctor who wrote Supermind, and I'm going to get Dr. Rosenthal, Norman Rosenthal, and he's been on our show a number of times, and he wrote Supermind, and he did because they couldn't do like you can't just go, okay, this feels great and we all think this and here's examples, but you have to scientifically gather evidence over many years. You can't just go,
Yes.
this looks good for a few people, you know, and hope that the rest of the world aligns. But they actually found that the brain was actually, it was like it's like a muscle that was getting stronger, like if you were an athlete and working out every day and
Through
training. It was
repetition
this.
and practice. Yes.
Yes. And so I think it's really good. He said meditation is great, but it's not as powerful. But I think the thing too, I think part of why it's successful is that they have a technique like what you're talking about, drop, you
Yes,
know, go to that blank screen because there's a technique to get you there. Like when you said those nanoseconds, I think that's the important key because
it
then you
is.
can repeat. So I think it's very similar in that way, where you can, because when you go to learn meditation, and I love that we're recording this on World Meditation Day, and I think meditation is very great for us, but it's really difficult to get to that place outside your monkey mind brain. I mean, my brain is,
Yes.
I'm running multiple things in my brain all the time, and sometimes I jump out of my body. I could be in a conversation, jump out and look at the entire room and see myself talking, but not really see my face, but know like, what are you doing? You're going too far. Like, you need to reel it back in. It's weird because I'll talk to myself. I'm not nuts. You see, this is it. I'm talking to a psychologist, and I know we're going to hang up and you're going to go, okay,
Yeah.
girl. No, but there's when you go too much, too
Yep.
fast,
Too
too
fast. And
hyper.
that's
That's that
why I use
slowdown.
the
My body
body.
does that.
I use the
Hmm.
body to cue them that they've been triggered. Go through the feeling very much like you were mentioning, incorporating past and current memory retrieval. But let me tell you the step further that dropping to the blank screen goes from any other method out there. I mean, it'd be great if you dropped to the blank screen and you got memory recall that the meditation worked, then you implement it. But there's one more very important step, and that is this. You can notice you're triggered, you can shift and stop your overreaction by noticing where you're lighting up. You can drop to the blank screen, feeling your body at neutral. But then, after the brain configures, you sit there a little longer and listen to your knowing or words or ideas. But once you make a decision based on those words of what you're going to say or do and say or do it, a decision based on what you hear in yourself after you've gone through the physiology of the feeling and the emotion is what it stops it from coming back over and over again, re-triggering you, or you thinking about a situation after it occurred, or with resolving the physiology of the feeling with relaxation or mindfulness or meditation. Yes, you get the autonomic nervous system to a neutral level, but it won't remain permanent unless you take the next 2 steps of listening to your knowing, your words, and making a decision based on them. It is making a decision that resolves the triggered feeling for the brain, and the brain doesn't have to keep bringing it up over and over again, trying to persuade you to feel through this and make a decision. So what is unique about my book and my method is the last and final step of listening to the knowing that you and I talked about before, but making decisions in the moment, or if that situation ever happens again to you. And the brain will retrieve and remember what you tried that worked better and start implementing it. You mentioned practice. It'll start implementing what works better for you. But if you don't make decisions, the physiology of feelings builds back up and you start thinking about the issue over and over again, even though you may have resolved the feelings in the moment, but it's not resolved permanently.
You know what I like about this is it's like a pattern interrupt. So like a kind of, if we look at our brains, it's like this highway system, right? When you've got the overpasses and all of that, and the traffic keeps going, traffic keeps going. It's like a guard just saying, stop. If you keep going, you're going to go over the bridge in the wrong way. You can't go over this bridge. It's not safe yet. It's like, stop. And then you make a decision. How are you going to stop? Are you going to reverse? What are you going to do? Your brain,
Exactly.
when you drive, does that. And action, because it's taking action, and it's this lack of action that I think drives us all insane. Like if you've
Well,
got something, you need to make a decision. Am I going to move? Right? Say that's the decision. And maybe you need to, you know, do your lease papers. I'm just making this up. I travel. I don't have anything like that to worry about, but you're going to sit at night. And I've been through this where your brain is going to go, you're not going to sleep, especially us women. I think us women worry a ton. And once you make that decision, how many times in life have we all gone, oh, I'm glad that decision's made. Now I can breathe. Right.
that's exactly the point. And the important thing is, we're in a crisis situation. If you don't drop, or in any situation, you don't get memory recall involved in your decision. And you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So the importance of shifting and dropping to the blank screen, sitting, standing, driving, laying down at night, is it produces the memory recall that configures for us automatically some ideas of what to say or do, and then make decisions based on them. And let's say you're in a situation and you do what you do with the traffic or the situation. If you walk away beating yourself up afterwards or second guessing yourself, guess what, Lisa? All you have to do is notice you're lighting up afterwards, shift, drop to the blank screen as your brain configured what happened and everything it knows about you and the situation. Sit there a little longer till you make a decision what you'll say or do if you're ever in that situation again.
Mm-hmm.
And once you make that decision, you walk away and you stop thinking about it and you can get to sleep. And if the situation ever happens again, the traffic one you were defining or any triggering situation, your brain will automatically retrieve and implement that decision you made after the fact, whether it was 6 seconds ago or 6 years ago.
Mm.
That's why I love the brain. It is so beautifully designed for our decisions.
Mm. And I think the other thing is, we talk about confidence. You're mentioning that at the beginning is when you make decisions and then you're making them in a repetitive way, right? So that becomes this positive habit. And to me, this feels like you're developing a better relationship with yourself. So you have this communication going on. You make more decisions. This decisions work out. You stand by your decision. You start to feel better about yourself, more confident. So if you are in a negative relationship, whether it's someone at work, or it could be a loved
Yes.
one, you
Hmm.
can now make decisions according to what is right for you, not what somebody else is, because you know internally, this is what I need to do. Or maybe you have to deal with that toxic person for a maybe you just go, all right, well, that's who they are. Like that's their deal. You don't have to let it trigger you because you already know what to do. You
This
know
is
you
a
can handle
great
it.
example. Yeah. What I love about the methodology I'm teaching, and you're right, the end result is self-esteem, or a person who's listening to their own thoughts, feelings, and ideas for their decisions, not reading other people. With difficult or disruptive people or a relationship that's not going too well, they may have initially entered a relationship with you or hired you because they thought you were reading them, not yourself. And
Mm,
all of a sudden, when you gain this self-confidence through this method and you're resolving the physiology of feeling, so you sound vocally very solid and you're making your own decisions, not reacting to what they say or do, it puts them in the position of realizing they can't control or manipulate you. And if they want to maintain a relationship with you, they have to turn around and start respecting you and find someone else to push buttons with.
mm. Yeah, the button pushing happens. I mean, we're
It
kind of in this
does.
world. Yeah. I mean, it's happening on all levels. And I think a lot of people don't stand up for what they care about too because of manipulation or I hate to
Well,
say this, but I think people get brainwashed too because they just they don't have that basis. And I think that's so important that people have that basis that to 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 trust themselves, to understand that it's
right.
okay to not like this, or you don't have to be fashionably,
Yeah.
fashionable.
You don't
You
have to
can be who
please
you
others. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's going on and then it leads into grand things that aren't what you are truly aligned with. It doesn't go with your moral compass, but you've gone along with it because of that confidence level. So there's a bunch of things going on in the world because of that, that is really detrimental to a lot of
Well,
things.
we
Does that make
learn,
sense?
you are right on track, Lisa. We learn how we respond to people and situations and feelings in our first early years of development. So if someone learned to not dismiss or minimize and not listen to themselves, but read their parents, they're going to go into the world reading other people for what to say or do.
Mm,
That's a problem. So this book gives people a simple, quick, effective method to practice getting back to what did not get reinforced enough growing up, which is listening to how you feel, what you observe, and what you want to try to do. The method gets back and it retrains the brain to go from the old neuron track of dismissing or minimizing their thoughts, feelings, and ideas that might have occurred growing up to instead getting back with a new configuration on that old neuron track when practiced to replace the dismisser or minimizing or second guessing yourself with listening to your first thought, feelings, or ideas, following through with them and making decisions, including in how you deal with other people. Very,
mm,
very effective and very important.
mm,
So it's not just, oh, some drop, breathe, and relax. It's retraining your brain. And the marvelous thing, one more thing, Lisa, is the brain is so beautifully designed. it adapts to what feels better afterwards, not what feels worse. So when you
Mm,
start shifting and dropping and listening to yourself and circumstances start changing and you walk away not beating yourself up anymore, or second guessing yourself or trying to fix the world, it feels so much better autonomically and emotionally that your brain, when you're triggered again, remember we use memory retrieval? The
hmm.
memories that start getting retrieved are, well, this new thing worked last time, try that out. Right?
Yeah. No, I love this. It is like a big pattern interrupt, just
Uh-huh.
stop those loops, but these are the good loops. Like this is the good music to listen to,
Uh-huh.
what that makes you happy if in this situation and your brain already knows it. It's like people can ask you a question, you can answer like immediately. And they always say that first answer is typically the right one. And that's about that. I think
That is about that. And
yeah.
either we learn to listen to that knowing and those instincts growing up, or we don't. And for those who don't, I'm offering an option to get back and retrain your brain to do it now.
Mhm. But this helps. Like I know for a fact, like when you start eating healthy, you may have, and let's put COVID, everybody started having, day long snacking, day drinking, day long, what are we going to
Right.
do? And then as soon as you had to pull yourself out of that. And as soon as you started eating healthy again, your palate changes. Like I can tell you now that Nancy and I, we travel and there's bad food. And then when we get to a place, it's good. Like we're like, yay. And as soon as I mean, I think it was our last trip, we both had, we got a bag of potato chips or something. And if we normally do that, it's normally like very light salt or whatever, kind of the healthy version, even though it's not perfect, right? I remember there was like nothing and this was it. Like, and I'm starving, man. I need to eat. Both of us, I like our teeth almost curled from the salt and our body just went, no.
No.
And no, and it was weird because then, like, if you go eat a carrot, your body gets happy. I know I'm not trying to promote everybody eating carrots and being rabbits, but you can tell when your body goes, thank you, finally. It's like when you go to a doctor and the doctor gets you thinking about your health and, oopsie, I should have done this. I wouldn't be in your office if I did the prevention, and your body literally changes. You feel more in control sometimes, depending on what it is. Going out and like go to the dentist or whatever, because now you have a plan to get your body back to where it is. And it's almost like you're talking to your brain, and your brain's like, come on, man, I've been waiting for this. Come on, it's about time. Let's go. Let's go. I'm excited. I'm
Yeah,
your
that's
partner.
using memory retrieval to adjust your choices based on how your body ends up feeling. Yeah,
Hmm.
great job.
Very
Two
cool,
of
man.
you.
This is fun. I've had a good time with you on the show. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing for people to be able to take, because I really don't think everyone gets to an to any kind of real help all the time. You know what I mean? I think when it's
Yeah.
something tangible that you can do at home, especially moms, and just I think that's important. Really busy people need something that's tangible, and I think that's what you've done with your book. And then also people be able to follow up with the podcast, do the homework, as you say. That helps keeps things to stick in your brain, right? To
Yeah,
do the homework.
and the book itself will teach you how to do the method. The podcast may be examples,
Mm.
but the book will teach you exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The podcast is like a follow up, like
Yeah,
to keep
yeah,
you
you're
on
right.
track.
A reinforcement, as you will.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
love it. I love it. So everyone go to helenmckibben.com, and that is linked in the show notes. Again, the book is called Drop, Making Great Decisions. And I think we all need that. And just think about it when we do politics this year. Who are you voting for? Let's make great
Exactly.
decisions.
Drop and
See?
get memory retrieval in that one. Yes.
I know, right? Oh yeah, get married. Oh, don't start me. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.